Yeah, thanks for having me. I was in Potsdam on November 25, and what happened afterwards, you might call the sort of most important workshop I've ever had about self-actualization. And I want to tell you about them, but I'm going to sort of try it out first. Does it work? So who was behind this? There's a lot of us. We cooperated on this. And CORRECTIV is a media house. We're planning on strengthening democracy with nonprofit journalism. And we want to reveal disinformation, misinformation, and really show what to do. And obviously, we also have conflict politically at CORRECTIV, and we're rarely of one opinion. And this is great for us because you always get new opinions, new thoughts. So I'm here, of course, for CORRECTIV, but the opinions that I have are partly mine. And some colleagues might say, hey, I look at this differently. I'll try to sort of make this balance, but just to let you know. But first, I want you to remember the time right after we published the secret plan, this investigation. This was a pretty special time in the country. Okay. And I would like to sort of show the next picture. I had asked, can I show this right after the day that sort of the radio showed this, and now we are gonna show a video or an audio clip, I guess, that can really represent the
mit Variationen über ein mährisches Volkslied vom Komponisten Gideon Klein. Ja, und wenn es nach dem Willen der Nazis gegangen wäre, dann hätte dieser Komponist Gideon Klein nur wenig komponiert. Er hätte auch nur komponiert in einem Lager. Er wäre quasi vom Erdboden verschwunden, wenn es nach dem Willen der Nazis gegangen wäre, weil er jüdisch war. Er wäre eingesperrt gewesen in Theresienstadt. Später.
Sorry from the interpreters, this is unintelligible for us.
Und Sie merken schon, ich erzähle Ihnen das alles im Konjunktiv, so als hätte das verhindert werden können. Ja, hätte es vielleicht auch, wenn die verdammten Nazis niemals an die Macht gekommen wären. Aber so ist es eben doch passiert. Gideon Klein hat nur wenig komponiert, das auch nur in einem Lager. Er war eingesperrt in Theresienstadt. Er ist deportiert worden nach Auschwitz und er ist von den Nazis ermordet worden, weil die Nazis an die Macht gekommen sind.
Because the Nazis came to power. So if in 2024, or more in 2023 in November, people in a Potsdam hotel sort of sat and talked to each other about deporting German nationals. And there were industrial representatives, there were even political representatives from apparently democratic parties, then we have to say these are really Nazis and they can't come to power. And this was part of sort of a German Western radio message that just played through and really showed the importance of what the investigation has revealed. And the reaction was sort of following in 5 days after this. There was a reaction. So spreading further these untrue statements and these accusations is really a political and media scandals for the Federal Republic of Germany. these are German Democratic Republic methods. And the GDR, the new lender, they also reacted. A day before, there was a big protest in front of the Court of Administration. I don't know if you remember, but for me, this was really special that a single text is actually able to sort of cause the biggest protests in Germany's history. This has really gotten under our skin and has really, all of the reactions, all of the taxi drivers, everyone talked about it. And a friend called me, his daughter asked when her best friend might be when it might be her best friend's turn, which probably means her best friend is someone who might be remigrated or demigrated. And I'll tell you what happened and how it happened, but first, why? Why was there such an explosion? There's many different explanations. Everyone has their own, obviously. Alice Weidel also has her own. I think, for me, we really felt powerless. We had the COVID pandemic, we had sort of the attack, we had protests by farmers, we had fascists in power in India, in Russia, in China, Xi Jinping. Trump is obviously running again, and sort of the numbers for AfD are still climbing. And we can see that when we publish this investigation, then everyone has a really, really close relation. Either I actually have some migration background, so they might be talking about me and kicking me out, or I might have Nazi background. So I need to make a decision on what I want to be doing. Now, what does politics make? On October 15, 2023, on Sicily, I got a message. I deleted everything, but the source didn't delete everything, so they have sent it to me again. And this was the view that I saw. And I called my colleague, Markus Benzmann, really bad connection. You can see I was in nature, so it has to have been really important for me. And I called him. He was also on holiday, and I told him, "Hey, I got this letter, and this has to be a really important investigation." In the letter, we could see these two people signed it: a dentist from Düsseldorf, Geheimplan and Hans Christian Limmer, who's an investor in a German bread bakery chain, who has received a lot of money. And you could see sort of everywhere in a lot of blogs and forums that are researching and investigating fascism. And what you could find there was these people were already on there. So this dentist, for instance, was a leader of an organization that is right-wing and right extreme, that is extremely right. And what this was about was really to strengthen the German people. The other person, so the dad, was actually investigated by the police. They found neo-Nazi memorabilia, neo-Nazi remembrances in there, and he had a lot of money. And the two people met, and they wanted to fight for this patriotic thing. They wanted the funds raised to go to a neutral account. And we were wondering, when do you decide when to go in? So if you're doing this kind of investigative work of hiding your own identity, going undercover, you need to really make a very good decision. I can't just go to Republika and pretend to be someone I'm not. It needs to be of public relevance, and I can't. There can't be a different way for me, an easier way for me to get to it. So when I would have asked to take part in this, would I have actually gotten access to? But actually, in the letters, it was very clear that this was supposed to be secret, that there would be a neo-Nazi coming from Austria. There were a couple of names of people who would be going there, and it was really about what this is about the goals there, and also all of the elections at the local levels. And third, which isn't according to law, but just how I would decide myself, I wouldn't step down. So I would never do this kind of investigative research for a really small organization that is sort of at a lower level than I am. But how do you actually get there? So I saw that the hotel owner, she had, I guess, tried to push the AfD within a Spiegel article, and she actually had bought another building where there was another article that really said, hey, so she bought this piece of property to save it from Nazis. And now she actually invited these Nazis to go there.
So actually, the person from Correctiv had rented this room using booking.com. On their website, everything was blocked, but they forgot to block it on booking.com, and they forgot to say, sorry, everything's full, go somewhere else. It didn't happen. So I was in. We had gotten to know from the grapevine that there was other journalists also, and they supported us with vehicles and so on, like we also did in investigations on, for example, animal cruelty. So this was the right and the left entrance, and like that we could see. Well, we had invitations where there were the names of different people, and here we could actually see whether those people would actually turn up. But how would we get images from behind? You can see the Haus Adlon here, the two cars, and we had a fourth camera here. We also tried with a sports camera, but the images were too pixelated. And so I went in, and there was a flyer lying about. And we thought, oh, that's the neighbors, why not? So hi, Sabine. And this is how we got those nice images. We could have taken agency pictures or press pictures. Why did we do this whole conundrum? Because you can see the relations. If Gerrit Hui in the RRD could have said, I didn't talk to Martin Söllner. Well, but you can see here in the picture, you're leaning forward, you seem very interested. And this person, Ulrich Siegmund from the AfD, it's the head of the fraction from Saxony-Anhaltina. I didn't know how he did it, but there's not a single image where he's not talking. He's very eloquent. So we took all of those images. Let me stand here so that I can see my notes better. The question is also the third camera. how did we do that? I bought myself a camera watch, and there was my bedroom, and I prepared myself. I went to an optician. I'll go to an AfD meeting, and he equipped me with these glasses. I can't sell those. They just look horrible. And so I went in. He was unpleasantly cheeky and asked for milk, coffee or something. And our staff aren't prepared to be that tough. And that's why he kept turning up. So I was unpleasant and I was cheeky. So when I was asked why do I have a double room alone, I just blabbed. I said, well, who of you knows what a weekender is? Some people don't know that. Those are really bulky bags. And what you're saying when you're wearing one of those bags is, I only drive by car because I'm rich. And I bought a weekender. And, well, I'll just pretend my girlfriend just left me and I'm sad, and I'll walk alone, and the next morning I'll ask for coffee. I saw the catering plan, so I knew when they would have breakfast. So the next morning I went through the room. I was here between the conference room and the canteen room where they prepared, and down there was a bunch of letters. And the letters, of course I wanted them because they had names on them. So how did I go there? I took my cell phone, and you can see my camera perspective from the watch. I greeted people. You can see Mario Müller there. No, I'm not part of the group. I filmed, and behind my back, I just filmed the names of all of the neo-Nazis. The first time it didn't work because I forgot to push the button, but the second time, well, I stopped because I heard a creaky noise, and the third time finally worked. Yeah. And it actually ended with a face that we won't find out who it is, but the Zeit found out that's Erik Arndt that is looking at me. It could have ended otherwise. So the big question we hear all the time, how did you document the content so well? We never spoke about this on any stage before, and I won't talk about it today either, because we have to protect our sources. We know that people who tell on neo-Nazis don't have a good life when they're uncovered, and honestly, this is one of the things I take most pride in about CORRECTIV, is that they haven't been uncovered so far. It was several. They were very talkative, but no one knows who they are. And in spite of the immense pressure despite research and investigation from the right, who wanted to know how did we do that, it remained secret. So what remains? For anyone who just skimmed the research, looked at faces, the investigation groups asked, do you know this person? Do you know that person? And in the end, we knew there's a right-wing extremist dentist. There was a meetup of IFD representative who did a master plan on expulsing foreign citizens with a racist ideology. And if they basically talked about this master plan, which violates a bunch of articles in the German constitution. There were several AfD fraction heads who wanted to get donations in secret. There were staff stories like you hire staff for some shady jobs and then the money isn't ours. There was the Mario Müller, an open right-wing extremist, who says that he would send violent groups to journalists, and also describes legal methods to undermine voting. And there was also voter donations being organized. And on 10th January, the investigation was published. At this point, I wasn't in Berlin. I was in Vienna because on 18th January, we published a theater play in the Berlin Ensemble. We have a research that has a lot of content, but it could have happened that the affected persons could say they misused my name. So it could have happened that I wouldn't have been able to publish my investigation. So I have to ask. You call that confrontation in journalism. I also can't tell you on stage without confronting the affected persons, but also I can't go to theater and make a play out of it, because that would be disseminating the content, and that wouldn't be okay if, for example, the IFD members disclosed that they were actually working for the German Verfassungsschutz, the Secret Service. So on 8th January, I went to Vienna and talked to Kai Voges from Volkstheater Wien. We knew each other already, and okay, this person trusts that person, and they didn't know what was in it. And only when we confronted them, I worked on the text in Vienna. In Germany, the whole thing exploded and blew up, and we wrote this theater play within 3 or 4 days. Back to Berlin Ensemble, 2 days, 3 days, 3 hours of rehearsals. And spontaneously on Thursday evening, we were able to bring this theater play to stage. And then it went back to the audience. And in 40 theaters in Germany, it was shown. In Bochum, I know we had to hire an extra room. It was in pubs. Until today, schools and city theaters want to use our text. It's open source. We're not making any money from that. You can also use this text, change it, update it, discuss it with your pupils in the pub, whatever you want. But why theater? Why theater when this is such a serious issue? I have a short excerpt from the theater play, but I think the most important reason why I decided in favor of doing this theater play with CORRECTIV is because in journalism and media and democracy we have a huge problem which isn't talked about enough. And in one of his last books, it was about headlines. we have to decide what is more important, the cute panda bear, the Ukraine war, rockets on Tel Aviv, or is it the latest telenovela issue? What is most important? Which headline do I swipe through and which do I read? And theater is where people come together and people don't look on their cell phones. So there's a social pressure that forces you to listen to me for an hour. And as such, you have the opportunity to tell a story for a whole hour, and you have meta layers, which I want to show to you. Remigration, that is abstract and bureaucratic. The concept behind it, he explains it like that. Stage character, Martin Sellner. There is 3 target groups of migration that should leave Germany. 3 target groups of foreigners we want to re-migrate. First, asylum seekers. Second, foreigners who have the right to remain here. And third, non-assimilated citizens. Well, stop. Non-assimilated citizens? Are you crazy? This is the term he's using. We don't have to reproduce this Nazi language. There are no non-assimilated citizens. That's just a specific term. Well, but it's the point. That's how it works. About language, the cultural layer questions the rights of people. We haven't invented this term. Sellner has used it in his book. Well, if you want to understand what this is all about, you have to be gruesome as the reality may be. Can I continue? Sure. The main goal of the right-wing extremism is conserving cultural substance. Well, just say it. You mean race separation? Yeah, of course. He's from the Nazi marketing department, so that's... Yeah, can I continue? So this was a meeting we had in our team. What can we say and what can we not say? Which terms can we use? At the end, we used it, but using the medium of the theater play and also the text, we were able to contextualize the whole thing and bring more meta layers to this whole thing. Who of you saw the theater play? Okay, that's a few. You can also rewatch it on YouTube and also in the ARD Mediathek and Dreisat. So, yeah, it's the figure in the play, Martin Sellner. And if you really say Martin Sellner, the lawyers are coming. So, yeah, it's a contextualization of what can you say, what can you do. And after the play, everyone could say, well, this play was shite or this play was cool. And what happened afterwards, it wasn't just us as Correctiv, we're non-profit, which means that we have another stance on finding the truth. We're in another cosmos. Donations didn't explode as much as you might think. There were a lot of people who were angry, people who said this investigation is too political. So yeah, that's the reality. It's not all rose-tinted. Yeah, we could work, but it's not. It didn't escalate as much as we would have hoped. But still, we're able to work non-profit. So we had a heap of information, a lot of work that we can do ourselves. So we gave that work to our colleagues. The week afterwards, the only thing I did was distribute material. And another person came from another newspaper, and would ask about certain vehicle registration numbers, and I would provide them with the photos and so on and so on. And the next person came from Austria. Do you have pictures of this and that person? And I gave them the pictures. And Netzpolitik gave an award to a Hessian AfD politician. So there was one reaction after the other. And it was spread, spread, spread. Most media houses wouldn't do that because, well, there's competition and we have to do this ourselves. We have a lead. We have to stay ahead of the competition. And that wasn't the case with us. And this is what I find special about Korrektiv.
Yeah. So this is like from our side what we did. Now, what was special and a little bit awkward was that the chancellor actually did marketing for us. The leader of the Verfassungsschutz, he basically told people to go out and protest, which was also strange, because we thought, okay, actually, as a Verfassungsschutz leader, you should have done what we did. And there were thoughts about maybe we should prohibit the AfD, but the AfD as such actually was a little bit split. So they were thinking, what should we do? Should we sort of kick out some people? And on a European level, Le Pen actually provided Alice Weidel with a task, you could say, to say sorry. And actually, just recently, the European ID group has actually kicked out AfD as the party because it might be too right-wing even for this European group, because the SS, which is the German secret police during the Nazi time, was actually quite active in France. So, and if you can take a look at the sort of map, someone from the Bundestag actually came to us and showed us, oh, all of these protests were a reaction to your text. And a couple of days later, more and more protests were happening, and all of the media was looking only at this, and every media house really wanted to look for Nazis and sort of pulled them out. And we really thought, okay, well, this is really what democracy should do. And if we're thinking of having this really key wall in between us, then this is what we should do, is to shine a light onto them and to really reveal what they're doing, these Nazis. And again, a little bit weird, the chancellor also protested, which is a bit weird. The government also protested. No, probably not of their own volition. At least he doesn't look really happy. But this kind of feeling, this mood, everyone really talked about it, and everyone really thought, well, we will change our behavior. Okay, football players and football trainers are also citizens, and business managers are also citizens. So whoever now doesn't rise, they haven't understood anything. This is really not a question. It's really 5 minutes before 12. So very, very close to a bad situation. And you don't need we don't need complaints, and we don't need to sort of understand that, oh, well, people vote AfD just to protest the current situation. Whoever has not understood it now, and they really should know that every single one of you, also based on Germany's history, has to take care of it, has to really take a very, very clear position. And this is really what we are all called to do right now. yeah, there were some weird reactions as well. A football something decided to become sort of the president of the European Championships. So some people also want to explain and really reap profits from this. And but we actually think you might be able to sort of use whatever you are, wherever you are, to go against right. But what we didn't think was to sort of that companies would react like this. We really expected companies that we mentioned to maybe say something. But what we are actually seeing is that a lot of companies have actually built up these kind of clubs. So something called Club for Democracy. And these are really big companies that usually have budget to donate to parties. They actually want to give to civil society this time around. And I think this is really important. There's some companies have actually collected together. Some Catholics, bishops have really clearly said that right-wing extremism isn't good. And sort of lawyers and also judges usually aren't really political in public. But in this case, they actually did. What we also didn't think is that some politicians actually recommended or proposed a change in the basic law. And these are all things that didn't happen because of our investigation. They were all prepared before, but there were always sort of critiques. There was a lot of conflict, and our investigation actually contributed to these things that had been prepared before to be sort of implemented suddenly. There's some measures by Interior Minister Faeser against right-wing extremism in Bremen, which is a city in Germany, that sort of the Parliament of Bremen should really start collecting a lot of information to look into whether AfD could be forbidden or should be forbidden. And sort of even someone who usually said criminal foreigners should go, but even at the European level, there was really a break. But there was also a lot of stuff that wasn't very convenient and very comfortable for us. Now, for you guys, if you're ever doing this kind of investigation, if you've ever been an investigative artist or an sort of political activist artist, then you should make sure that your old website, when you were Peng Collective, which where you did maybe some sort of acts that were not real, and that maybe you should mark them as being in the past. At least in there, for what you could see was my old website still contained information about what I used to do. And this I'm really sad about, and I'm sorry about for my colleagues. So what happened was my one of my colleagues has really shown how AfD is sort of organizing the right-wing media. And we have invited a lot of people into a meeting at the Bundestag to think of how can we maybe create a public that is against the current sort of mainstream. So we can see Alice Weidel shared this post from Young Freedom, which is the youth organization of AfD. And there were a lot of different reports. And by the way, almost all of these sort of didn't actually follow copyright law. Now, in this case, Republica, you can send a message to them and you'll get some money. And then there was another story that I was sort of marked as a left-wing extremist. And a friend of mine told me that it's a little strange that they use this really fun clown picture to sort of paint me as a extremist and someone who really does violence. And in this is the context for this, where someone who did a Hitler greeting, which is something that is forbidden in Germany, and I pied him really in the face. Now, this isn't journalism, by the way, but it is still possible that this is a measure of political communication in Belgium. Now, in Germany, this is different. It's not part of a normal sort of political communications in Germany. Now, the judge actually ruled that it was sort of using force or using your hands to smear someone. Now, there were sort of these spins were happening on the different social media channels, first on the website of AfD, then on the AfD channel itself, and then on the different social media channels. Now, this hurt me. This was bad. And this also went in front of a judge, in front of a court. I'm not sure if you still remember Ulrich Vosgeraut and sort of some of the court shenanigans that were happening. Oh, there's not that many actually who are remembering. I was outside of Germany for an investigation, and someone told me, "Hey, but you need to say sorry, right? It was wrong." So the PR to some degree worked. And what it was about was that we wrote something that seemed like he had said that the more questions were sort of put in on these kind of to make sure that the election is true, then it is becoming more successful. So he went in front of the court, and this is a really normal thing. This is what journalists do. And like, if we think, well, didn't he say this? Then you go in front of a court and you just decide. So, by the way, if you ever make a mistake, just say yes. Don't go to court. But in journalism, this is really what happens. You might be saying, hey, I made this mistake. Sorry, correction. We changed this sentence. Okay. What happened? There were a lot of reports again. And these aren't the very right-wing party media, Tichys Einblick, these kinds of things that really show disinformation. But instead, these are really reputable media. And in front of at court, there were sort of 3 things that he wanted to have changed. And in 2 of them, the court actually decided that we were right, but in 1 of them, he was right. And now it's actually really boring. And those 4 sort of big media actually actually titled this, okay, CORRECTIV made a really big mistake. They need to correct themselves. Now, some other big media actually was more differentiated, was more clear in what is actually happening. But this is actually the problem that we are seeing of these headlines that are really sort of bad, or that are really trying to portray a message, and these are the headlines that are sticking in our brain. And the AfD marks me in this case, and then they're using these kinds of reports for their own PR. But this is not really what we're planning on doing. This is a German talk show. After my car was burned down, after my car was burnt down, the person who actually burned down my car had gotten a good job. And now this is actually Jean Peters, the speaker of this talk. And this really made it seem like he had burned down her car. But actually, obviously, I didn't, that he didn't, and sort of they went to court again, and they decided that this person couldn't claim in the future to be that Jean Peters had actually burned down the car, but this is really you could say, mass attack. So it's sometimes called stochastic terrorism. So it's not about each individual attack, but it's about doing as many attacks as possible. So what you're trying to do is looking at sort of what's happening is maybe someone saw this report, and maybe this person might now look, hey, so so Jean Peters is going to Republika, and maybe this sort of random person would decide to follow Jean Peters. And this is now the reality that I need to live with. And personally, I decided to be a journalist. I decided to be in the public eye to some degree. Black people didn't.
Well, I had right-wing extremist bloggers in front of my front door, and that was really exhausting. But how did it go on? As journalists, we will continue to do our research. Recherche Nord, morgen, also about a fraternity meeting that was from people from the IFD, need to be supported. The reporters are doing their work, and it's en vogue to do good investigative journalism and also to look into whether this is relevant for a AFD ban. I'm not in the plenary rooms of the government, so I know that the AFD ban is being discussed. I can recommend you the talk from Vichandrini at 1 o'clock on the AFD ban. He will explain it better than I can, but I'll just sum up what I know and what I think about it. The application is political. Yes, the application filing for this ban is a political decision. So these people have to decide on whether to file an application or not, or to prepare it. Then there's the pro and counter arguments. Let me sum up some counter arguments. The gap that will follow, like the AFD voters, who will they vote for? Well, there's many options. If they don't want to elect any governing parties, there's a lot of alternative, but it's not part of, well, it's not written in any German law that you are allowed to vote for fascists. I think what would happen would be a diversification. It would split and splinter into many groups and parties. But there's it isn't regulated in the basic law because there was still space. They had their reasons to put that in the basic law. But, well, wouldn't they use that? Wouldn't they put themselves at the victims? Well, you can't victimize yourself any more than the AFD already does. So the debate will be shifted from migration to new evidence. And maybe with a ban, we would have a few years of silence, and we can't underestimate the effect that this would have. I would say, however it's decided, personally, I'm not talking on behalf of Corrective. Personally, I find it would be a good thing. Well, how can you ban a party? Well, in Germany, you're allowed to be racist. You can trample on workers. It's freedom of opinion, but you can't make a master plan, make it a goal, try to realize that goal. And what did we have? We would have to see whether this is possible today, that aggressive groups bully people online, if that is actually putting right-wing extremist plans into place. And I'll show you the excerpt from the basic law. I think 53% of the population are against a ban on AFD, but a lot of people are against a financing ban.
10,4 Millionen Euro vom Staat.
I think the AFD got 10.4 million euro from the state. And they're always saying Correctiv is getting tax money. Well, it's more complicated than that. Our team is independent. We don't have a red telephone. So this is one of the attacks they're always playing on Correctiv, but they themselves are getting funded by the states by more than 40%. This is normal for parties if they're not fascist. And I have a very contested court decision. What happens? The funds of the Communist Party are getting taken away. So, and it's given to charity, and isn't that beautiful? This is a debate we have to take on as a society, and not just let the constitution protection agencies do that alone. I don't know if they're doing enough other than call for demonstrations. I don't want to call them all idiots, but there should be people whose entire job it is to collect evidence. And wouldn't that be the least we could do, to collect evidence? I know different organizations who are doing that, but it should be aggregated, because many journalists are working for themselves. If you have any ideas on how to organize that, should the journalists do it? Should the civil society do it? Should the government do it? Approach me. I find it very fascinating. We'll go on. I think that was it. Thank you very much. Jean Peters, a huge round of applause. Thank you so much. One more thing. Come here on stage. Come here. Thank you. Do we just have to stick this out?
Also, genau. Also wir
All right.
Das hier sind meine
You can approach us. Those are my wonderful colleagues. We are a much bigger team who worked on this. And if you want to approach us, just remember what we look like. Jeanette, can you wave? She's also part of our team. And if you find someone else, please approach us. Subscribe to our newsletter. Tell your grandparents to donate. Thank you so much.